Every afternoon, like clockwork, my wife handed me a steaming cup of tea the moment I walked through the door. The smell was always the same, chamomile with a hint of mint. She'd smile, press the warm mug into my hands and say, "You need this. You've been working too hard." At first I didn't question it. I liked the comfort, the routine, the way it made the stress of the office fade for a while. But after a few weeks, something didn't sit right. My body felt heavy. My thoughts fogged. I'd wake up groggy, sometimes with a pounding headache, and I couldn't focus at work the way I used to. One evening, after another long day, I sat on the couch with the tea in my hand. The taste was slightly different, bitter under the sweetness. I looked at my wife. She wasn't even watching me drink. She was on her phone, barely acknowledging me. That was the moment I decided to trust my gut. The next day, instead of drinking the tea, I poured it down the sink when she wasn't looking. My head stayed clearer, sharper than it had in weeks. Something was wrong. And then came the night when the security guard called me about some strange activity on the building's surveillance system. He said I should come down to the office and take a look. When I sat in that dimly lit room, staring at the grainy footage on the screen, I felt my stomach turn. For the first time, I realized the tea wasn't just a habit. It was a weapon. The security office smelled like old coffee and floor wax, and the hum of the fluorescent lights felt like it was drilling behind my eyes. I'm 41, not old, but those lights make anybody feel worn. Mr. Alvarez rolled his chair back for me, the vinyl creaking, and slid a keyboard forward with the edge of his wrist. His hands were rough and clean, the kind of hands that fix problems. The screen threw a cold glow on my face, and I could see my own reflection in the glass. Eyes too tired, jaw trying not to clench. He didn't say much. He tapped a date, the afternoon before, and then the timeline. I watched my building's front lobby like it was a stage, and I was the only audience. The camera showed the entrance with the automatic doors that whoosh like a sigh, the concierge desk, the elevators in their copper frames. People came and went carrying takeout bags, yoga mats, tired kids, dry cleaning under plastic, the normal rhythm of strangers. Then Lena appeared, my wife in a camel coat, sunglasses, hair up in a satin scarf. She looked expensive in that easy way she's always had. She wasn't coming in. She was already inside. She was waiting. Her posture told the whole story. Still as a held breath, face tilted toward the doors. The timestamp blinked 3:27 p.m. At 3:29, a man walked in. Nothing special about him. Gray hoodie, ball cap, messenger bag slung across his chest. He didn't go to the desk. He went straight to her. No hug, no handshake. He handed her a small white pharmacy bag, crisp, folded over once. Lena glanced around, then slid it into her purse with a movement so smooth it could have been a magic trick. She said something short. The man nodded. He left. She stayed 5 seconds, fixing her scarf in the reflection of the elevator doors. Then she stepped in. At 3:31 p.m., she disappeared from the frame, riding up toward me. My mouth went dry. I could taste the metallic hint of fear, like touching a coin with your tongue. The chair in my legs felt unstable even though it was bolted to the floor. "Another day?" I asked, my voice lower than I expected. Alvarez already had the next clip ready. "You said routine," he murmured. He scrubbed back to the day before. Same dance. This time the man wore a navy jacket. The bag was brown paper, the size of a sandwich. Lena again, same stillness, same elevator at 3:31. Alvarez kept going. Tuesday, Monday, last Friday, 4 deliveries in 6 days. Different clothing, same man. Never to the desk, never signed in. No smile. A handoff like a dead drop in a spy movie. The air felt heavier. I could smell the dust cooked by the light fixtures. I pressed my thumbs into the bridge of my nose until the room flashed white. I thought of the tea, the steam curling up past my lip, the candied mint scent, the way the bitterness hid in the back, faint but insistent. I thought about the fog I'd been living in, the afternoon headaches that sank into my bones, the way Lena watched me at first, then didn't bother. Alvarez cleared his throat. "You want the garage cameras?" "Yes." We watched the same man breeze through the parking level on Thursday. Easy gait, head down. He stopped by a silver Accord with a bumper sticker I recognized from the neighborhood. Blue square with a white lighthouse. He opened the trunk, pulled out the pharmacy bag, and leaned against the car like he was just checking his phone. 2 minutes later, Lena's BMW rolled in. He walked to her window. Her hand came out, a $100 bill folded small. He passed the bag through. No words the camera could catch. Just a transaction measured in seconds. The anger arrived like heat coming off asphalt. It came from the chest out, hot enough to feel on the skin. I could hear my pulse over the hum. "Can you get a plate?" I asked. Alvarez zoomed, but the frame broke into pixels. He tried another angle, and we caught half of it. Enough. He wrote it down on a sticky note, his pen scratching slow and careful. He pressed it into my palm like a communion wafer. There was a faint taste of mint in my mouth, a ghost flavor that turned my stomach. He turned to me. "You want me to file anything? I can call?" "No." My voice surprised me. It was steady. "Not yet." Part of me wanted to rush upstairs, slam the door, spill everything into the light and make her answer. But the other part, the part that kept me alive in boardrooms and on job sites, the part that grew up learning how to survive rooms that didn't want me there, told me to slow down, gather proof, know the enemy, even if the enemy shared my bed. I asked for copies. Alvarez loaded them onto a thumb drive, the plastic warm from his fingers when he handed it over. He looked at me like a father would. No pity, just a quiet respect. "Be smart," he said. I slid the drive into my jacket pocket and felt its small weight against my ribs. On the walk to the elevator, the building smelled like lemons from the afternoon mop. The doors whispered open, and my face in the mirror was a stranger's face, older than it should be. The ride up felt too slow. I could hear my breathing in the small space, hear the whisper of air through my nostrils, feel the dampness gathering in my palms. At our floor, I stepped out into the soft carpeted hallway and the hush of money. My key turned cleanly in the lock. Inside, the apartment held our life in place. The framed photos, the neat books, the big fern by the window, the bowl of oranges on the marble island. The kettle on the stove sat heavy and ready, a dull silver eye watching me. I stood still and listened. Water moving through pipes, a neighbor's laugh, muffled, far-off traffic like a low river. "Hey, baby," Lena's voice floated from the bedroom. "You're early." I swallowed the taste in my mouth and set the thumb drive on the counter. "Yeah," I said. "Long day." I sat on the edge of the bed, my back to Lena, pretending to scroll through emails on my phone while my mind reeled. The glow of the screen blurred. Her voice drifted from the bathroom, casual, humming as she moved around. My heart thudded against my ribs like it wanted out. I kept seeing that pharmacy bag changing hands. 4 times, 4 afternoons. She walked out wrapped in a silk robe, hair tied in a towel, skin shining with lotion. She leaned down, kissed my cheek. "Tea?" The word burned in my ears. My jaw locked before I forced a smile. "Not tonight. I'm wired. Maybe some water." Her eyebrows flickered just for a second before the mask returned. "Suit yourself." She walked past me toward the kitchen, the robe whispering against her legs. I followed a minute later, barefoot, trying to make it sound like nothing. The kettle was already steaming, a coil of white curling against the dark tile. She stood with her back to me, pouring into the teapot, shoulders relaxed. Too relaxed. I leaned against the door frame. "You ever wonder why we drink so much tea?" She chuckled softly, not turning around. "Because it's good for you. Calms your nerves." The whistle of the kettle covered my exhale. I watched her spoon honey into the mug, stir slow, deliberate. Then she carried it toward me. "Just a sip," she said. I stared at the rising steam. My throat tightened, but I took the mug. The ceramic was hot against my palms. I lifted it, pretending, and let it hover close enough for the heat to sting my lips. She watched me. I set it down on the counter without drinking. "Too hot. I'll let it cool." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Of course. Later, when she was asleep, I crept back into the kitchen. The apartment was silent except for the hum of the fridge. I poured the tea into a glass jar, sealed it tight, and slipped it into my backpack. My fingers trembled as I zipped it. The next morning, I drove across town to a lab I'd used years ago for a work dispute. The receptionist didn't ask many questions, just slid me a form and an envelope. I handed over the jar, my signature shaky on the line. She said results would take 48 hours. 48 hours? 2 days of pretending? 2 days of smiling across the breakfast table, of touching her shoulder like nothing was wrong. 2 days of listening to her laugh with friends on the phone, her voice warm and easy, while my gut twisted tighter. That night she handed me another mug. I poured it into the sink when she turned her back, the minty smell rising like a ghost. I caught myself watching her too closely. Her hands, her eyes, the way she stood. I wanted to ask why, scream it in her face. But the voice inside me said, "Wait, be certain." On the second night she surprised me. I came home late and the mug was already waiting on the counter, steam curling upward like it had been waiting for me. My keys were still in my hand when I froze. She walked in from the balcony, wineglass in her fingers. "Didn't want you to wait? Long day?" The mug sat between us like a loaded gun. "Yeah," I said slowly. "Long day." I stared at the surface of the tea, and for the first time I noticed something I hadn't before, a faint shimmer on top, like oil catching light. My chest tightened. My mouth went dry. And all I could think was, if the lab confirmed what I already knew, then the woman I married wasn't just lying to me. She was trying to erase me, one sip at a time. The next 48 hours stretched out like a rope pulling tighter around my throat. I went through the motions at work, tapping at my keyboard, nodding through meetings, but I couldn't hear half of what anyone said. My body was in the office, but my mind was stuck in that jar at the lab, waiting for answers. Every night when I came home, the mug was there, steam rising, her eyes watching. She asked about my day, and I answered with half-truths. She laughed at her own stories, and I forced myself to laugh with her. If she noticed the distance, she didn't show it, but I noticed her, the way her hand lingered on the mug too long, the way she tilted her head just slightly when I raised it to my lips but never drank, the silence that stretched, heavy, until I set it down. She was waiting, too, for something. On the second morning, I woke before the alarm. My chest was tight, my skin damp with sweat. Lena was asleep beside me, hair spread across the pillow, breathing slow. I stared at her face, trying to see the woman I married 12 years ago. The woman who had held my hand through my mother's funeral, who had sat with me through late-night job rejections, who whispered dreams about the future. But all I saw was the reflection of the man in the hoodie, the quiet exchange of a bag for a bill. My stomach turned. At noon, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I stepped into the stairwell at work, the concrete echoing every breath. "This is Dr. Kent from Metro Labs," a voice said, flat and professional. "We have your results." My grip tightened on the rail. "And? There were traces of atropine in your sample." The word hit like a punch. "Atropine is used in small doses medically," he continued, "but in repeated higher doses, it can be extremely dangerous. Hallucinations, confusion, eventually respiratory failure. Whoever gave this to you wanted a slow decline. Hard to detect, easy to explain away." My vision blurred. I steadied myself against the wall. The cold concrete bit into my palm. "Mr. Parker?" "I'm here," I said, voice low. "You should go to the police." I hung up without answering. My pulse hammered. My breath came fast. I pressed both hands against the rail, trying to slow myself down. Atropine. Poison. Not a guess anymore. Not paranoia. Proof. Back at my desk, the world looked sharper, meaner. The fluorescent lights cut deeper. The sound of keyboards rattled like gunfire. I stayed late, long after everyone left, staring at spreadsheets I couldn't read. When I finally drove home, the city felt like a trap. Street lights burned orange through the windshield. Every honk, every siren stabbed my nerves. I parked, climbed the elevator, and when the doors opened, I saw Lena standing there in the hallway, waiting. She smiled, soft and practiced. "You're late." I forced my lips into something that looked like a smile. "Work." Inside, the kettle was already hissing. She moved like it was nothing, like it was any other night. But my hands clenched in my pockets around the thumb drive. The sticky note with the plate number, the weight of the truth pressing on me. When she set the mug in front of me, I stared at it for a long time. The steam curled, carrying that same sweet, minty smell. But now, underneath, I imagined the chemical bite of atropine slipping into my bloodstream, coiling like a snake. I pushed the mug back across the counter. My voice was calm, steadier than I felt. Not tonight. Her smile faltered. Just for a second. And in that second, I knew she already understood. The morning after refusing the tea, the apartment felt different. Not just quiet, strained. Like a glass window that looked solid but was ready to shatter with the slightest pressure. Lena moved around the kitchen with deliberate ease, humming, tapping the spoon against the counter, as if she was determined to show me that everything was normal. I sat at the table staring at my plate of scrambled eggs I couldn't bring myself to eat. The smell of butter and pepper filled the air, but my stomach stayed knotted. "You're barely touching your food," she said lightly, sliding into the chair across from me. Her robe swayed open just enough to remind me of the woman who once pulled me in close every morning before work. Now the intimacy felt like a blade wrapped in silk. "Not that hungry," I muttered. Her eyes lingered on me too long. There was curiosity there, maybe suspicion. She sipped her coffee, nails clinking against the porcelain. I cleared my throat. "What are your plans today? Yoga, lunch with Sasha, maybe some shopping." "Why?" "Just asking." The conversation dropped like a stone into water. No ripples, only silence. When I left for work, I didn't go to the office. I drove 3 blocks down, parked, and sat in my car with the engine off, watching our building's entrance from across the street. My hands tapped restlessly on the steering wheel. At 3:27, like clockwork, there he was. Hoodie, ball cap, same messenger bag. My chest tightened as he strolled toward the glass doors, as casual as if he owned the place. This time I didn't just watch. I stepped out, heart pounding, and followed at a distance. The building's lobby swallowed him up. I slipped in a minute later, pretending to scroll my phone. The concierge barely glanced at me. I was a tenant, nothing unusual. But my eyes stayed locked on the man ahead. He didn't hesitate, didn't look around. He walked straight to the elevator where Lena was waiting. She stood tall in her camel coat, sunglasses perched on her head though we were indoors. The exchange was swift. A brown paper bag this time, folded neatly. He slid it into her purse. She pressed folded bills into his hand. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. I forced myself not to rush over, not to rip the bag from her hands in front of everyone. Instead, I ducked behind a column, phone lifted as if I were checking messages. The camera clicked quietly, catching his profile, the handoff, her purse. Evidence. The elevator dinged. She stepped in, and for a second, just a second, her eyes scanned the lobby and landed on me. A flicker of surprise passed across her face before the doors closed. I exhaled, my chest aching. The man turned to leave. I followed him outside, my steps syncing with his. On the sidewalk, I snapped another photo of his license plate as he climbed into that silver Accord. This time the shot was clear. By the time I returned upstairs, Lena was in the kitchen, humming again, kettle already heating. She didn't mention seeing me in the lobby. She didn't ask why I was home early. She just reached for the mugs. "Rough day?" she asked. I set my briefcase on the counter, my voice even. "Something like that?" She poured, stirred, sweetened. The same routine, as if it hadn't just been exposed in the lobby 20 minutes earlier. She slid the cup across to me, and her hand lingered on the handle. Our eyes met, her smile sharp at the edges. "Drink up," she whispered. My pulse thundered in my ears. I didn't touch the mug. The cracks were showing now, in her eyes, in her voice. And I realized we were both waiting for the other to make the first move. That night, I lay awake beside Lena, listening to the rhythm of her breathing. It was too steady, too even, like she was rehearsing sleep. I stared at the ceiling fan cutting slow circles above me, my body still but my mind pacing hard. The lab's confirmation kept echoing in my skull. Traces of atropine. Proof. Enough to take to the police. Enough to blow everything open. But the thought of walking into a station, handing over her name, watching her face go pale under those bright interrogation lights, it felt too soon. Too sudden. I needed her to reveal herself. I needed to hear the truth from her mouth. By dawn, I had a plan. At work, I dug into contacts from a project I did 3 years ago. An old buddy named Carter, private investigator now, the type who thrived on digging where no one else wanted to look. He owed me a favor. We met at a diner off the highway, the kind of place with cracked vinyl booths and coffee that tastes like burnt toast. "You're serious?" Carter asked, stirring sugar into his cup. "Your wife?" I slid the thumb drive across the table. Security footage, 5 separate exchanges. Same guy, same time, same place. He watched the drive like it was a loaded gun. "And you're sure you want me poking around? Once I start, I don't stop." "I'm sure," I said, though my stomach churned. Carter nodded, pocketed the drive. "I'll run him down. You just act normal. Don't tip her off." Normal. That was the hardest part. That evening, when Lena handed me my tea, I smiled like nothing had changed. The mint hit my nose, sweet and sharp, and I made a show of blowing on it. She leaned against the counter, arms folded, eyes locked on me. "So," she said, voice light, "did you handle that thing at work?" "Yeah," I lied easily. "All cleared up." Her smile widened. "Good. But I didn't drink. Not a drop. Instead, I started small tests of my own. I asked her casual questions, what pharmacy she used, when she last saw Sasha, how yoga was. Her answers came smooth, without hesitation, but her eyes flicked to my mug every time, like she couldn't help herself. By the third night, I pushed harder. "You ever get bored of the routine?" I asked. She tilted her head. "What do you mean?" "Tea every day, same time, same flavor. Doesn't it feel predictable?" Her smile thinned. "I thought you liked it." "I do," I said quickly, watching her eyes. "I just wondered if you ever switch it up." Her fingers tapped the counter. "Some things shouldn't change." The silence between us stretched, thick and heavy. Later, while she showered, I took the mug she'd prepared and used a testing strip Carter had slipped me at the diner. The strip turned faintly green. Positive. My chest tightened as I flushed the liquid, washed the mug, and set it back in place before she returned. In bed, her body curled toward mine, warm, familiar. But I kept my eyes open, staring into the dark. The next morning, Carter called. His voice was low, urgent. "I found your guy. He's not just some dealer. He's a pharmacist, licensed, works at a small shop downtown. No priors, nothing dirty on paper. But the kicker? He's Lena's cousin." My grip on the phone went numb. "She's keeping it in the family," Carter said. "Which means this isn't random. This is personal." I hung up, the weight of his words crushing down. Lena stepped into the kitchen just then, hair wrapped in a towel, smiling like she always did in the morning. "Coffee or tea?" she asked. And I finally realized this wasn't just about poison. This was about betrayal buried so deep it wore the face of love. I spent the whole day at work staring at the same document on my computer screen, my fingers frozen above the keyboard. Carter's words kept circling in my head. She's keeping it in the family. Her cousin, a pharmacist, supplying poison in neat little bags like candy. It explained too much, tied everything together, but it also raised a darker question. Why? Why would Lena want me sick, weaker, fading out slowly instead of walking away clean? Divorce lawyers were expensive, sure, but not deadly. By the time I pulled into the garage that evening, my nerves were raw. I took the stairs instead of the elevator, trying to bleed off the tension before stepping through the door. The moment I opened it, the familiar smell of mint and honey wrapped around me. The kettle was whistling, and Lena was humming again, always humming, like a soundtrack to my unraveling. She looked over her shoulder, smiling. "Perfect timing. I was just about to call you." I forced my own smile. "What's for dinner?" "Roast chicken, your favorite. And of course," she lifted the mug, steam rising in a lazy curl. "Your tea." I crossed the room slowly, every sense sharpened. The sound of the kettle clicking off, the warmth radiating from the oven, the faint scent of rosemary mixing with the mint. I took the mug from her hand, our fingers brushing. Her eyes searched mine, waiting. I raised it, let the heat brush against my lips, then set it down on the counter untouched. "Too hot," I said. Her smile didn't fade this time. Instead, she leaned against the counter, arms folded, watching me with a strange calm. "You've been saying that a lot lately." "Have I?" "Yes." She tilted her head. "Funny thing is, you used to drink it right away. Couldn't wait. Now you just let it sit." The silence stretched. The only sound was the tick of the oven fan. I met her gaze, my voice steady. Maybe I just got tired of the taste. Her smile faltered only slightly, but enough for me to see it. A crack in the mask. She turned away, busying herself with the chicken. But I'd seen what I needed to see. She knew I knew. The rest of dinner was quiet. Too quiet. Every scrape of my fork echoed in the air. She ate neatly, never looking directly at me. I chewed slowly, forcing food down past the lump in my throat, pretending everything was fine while my mind planned a dozen escape routes. Afterward, she collected the plates, humming again. But when she turned, her eyes were sharp, calculating. "You've been different lately," she said softly. "Distracted. Distant. Work," I lied. "Deadlines." She studied me for a long moment, then smiled again. Softer this time. "I just worry about you." I nodded, unable to trust my own voice. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in the dark, listening to the rise and fall of her breathing, wondering if she was truly asleep or just waiting. Like I was. Around 2 a.m., I slipped out of bed and into the living room. The city lights painted the walls in pale orange streaks. I opened my laptop, pulling up the photos I'd taken of her cousin, of the handoffs in the lobby, of the plate number. Evidence piling up like stones. I had enough to confront her, enough to take to the police. But my chest tightened at the thought. Because once I said the words out loud, there was no going back. Behind me, I heard soft footsteps. I closed the laptop, heart hammering. Lena stood in the doorway, her robe tied loosely, her hair falling around her face. "Couldn't sleep?" she asked. "Yeah," I said, voice rough. "Just too much on my mind." She stepped closer, her smile warm, almost tender. But her eyes, those eyes, watched me like a predator testing the air. "Maybe you just need your tea," she whispered. And in that moment, I knew this was no longer a game of pretending. This was a dangerous dance, and the next step would decide everything. I spent the next morning staring at myself in the bathroom mirror, razor in hand, water still running in the sink. My face looked the same as it always had. Brown skin, tired eyes, jawline covered in a shadow of stubble, but behind it was something different. I wasn't just tired. I was hunted. And the hunter shared my bed. I needed leverage. Not just suspicions, not just a lab result, but undeniable proof. Something that would corner her, force her to reveal the truth. At work, I called Carter. "I need a recording device," I told him. "Something small, discreet." He didn't even hesitate. "Tonight." Usual spot. We met after sunset at the same diner. He slid a tiny voice recorder across the table, no bigger than a car key. "Press once to start, once to stop. Battery'll last a full day." I slipped it into my jacket pocket, heart thudding. "Thanks." Carter leaned back, eyes narrowing. "You're playing with fire, Marcus. Be careful she doesn't see the lighter in your hand." When I got home, Lena was already in the kitchen, kettle whistling. The smell of mint filled the air like smoke. I greeted her with a kiss on the cheek, slid my jacket onto the chair, and left the recorder tucked in the pocket. She handed me the mug, eyes searching mine. "Better mood today?" I forced a smile. "Trying." I lifted the cup close but didn't drink, letting the steam fog my glasses before I set it down. She tilted her head, a faint smile tugging at her lips. "Marcus," she said softly, "sometimes I think you don't trust me." The words hit like a slap. My chest tightened. But I didn't flinch. "Why would you say that?" "Because you hesitate," she said, nodding toward the mug. "You look at it like it's a test. Maybe I just don't like tea as much as I used to." Her smile stretched, sharp at the edges. "Or maybe you're afraid of what's in it." The air between us froze. My throat went dry. For a long moment we just stared at each other, silence thick as concrete. Then she turned away, busying herself with the dishes, humming again. That night, after she went to bed, I slipped the recorder from my jacket and replayed it in the living room with headphones. Her voice filled my ears, low and deliberate. Or maybe you're afraid of what's in it. My pulse quickened. That was as close to an admission as I'd ever get without a confrontation. Proof. But proof wasn't enough. I needed to know why. The next day, I left work early and drove to the little pharmacy downtown. The place was small, fluorescent lights buzzing above shelves of aspirin and vitamins. Behind the counter stood the man from the footage. Hoodie replaced with a white coat. Messenger bag gone. Clean cut. Harmless looking. I waited until no one else was inside before stepping up. "You're Lena's cousin," I said flatly. His eyes flickered. "Who's asking?" "Her husband." The color drained from his face. He opened his mouth, then closed it, glancing at the security camera in the corner. "You shouldn't be here." "I know about the deliveries," I pressed, leaning in. "The bags, the money, the poison." His eyes widened. Don't lie to me." My voice was low, steady. "I already had it tested. Atropine." He swallowed hard, sweat gathering at his temple. His hand twitched against the counter. "Why?" I demanded. He shook his head. "I can't. She'll kill me if I talk." My stomach twisted. Then she really is trying to kill me. His silence was the only answer I needed. I left the pharmacy with my heart pounding, my mind racing. She had family in on it. This wasn't a mistake or a misunderstanding. It was deliberate. When I got home, Lena was waiting in the kitchen, pouring tea. She looked up and smiled sweetly. "You're late," she said. And in my pocket the recorder was already rolling. The recorder pressed against my thigh as I sat at the table, Lena moving around the kitchen like it was just another evening. The smell of mint and honey drifted between us, but now it was poison to me, a weapon dressed as comfort. She placed the mug in front of me, her smile warm, her eyes sharp. "Here you go, baby. Just the way you like it." I wrapped my hands around the ceramic, letting the heat sting my palms. I stared into the swirling steam, then up at her. "Lena," I said carefully, "why do you always make tea for me? Every single night." Her brows lifted, the smile never leaving. "Because I love you. Because you work too hard. Because you need to slow down. Or because you need me weak." The words dropped between us like a hammer. Her smile froze. Her eyes narrowed just slightly, just enough for me to see the shift. "What's that supposed to mean?" I leaned back, my pulse racing. "I had the tea tested." For the first time in weeks, she didn't smile. She didn't frown either. Her face went completely still, like stone. "And?" she asked softly. "And it's poisoned. Atropine, small doses. Enough to make me sick, confused. Eventually worse." The silence was heavy, broken only by the tick of the clock on the wall. She didn't deny it. She didn't gasp in shock. She just tilted her head, studying me. Finally she said, "You shouldn't have done that." My skin prickled. "So it's true." She walked around the table, slow, graceful, and leaned against the chair across from me. "What do you want me to say, Marcus? That you caught me? That I've been slipping something in your tea? What would that change?" My throat tightened. "Why, Lena? Why would you do this?" Her eyes glinted in the dim kitchen light. "Because sometimes, Marcus, love isn't enough. Sometimes you need control." The words hit like a gut punch. My grip on the mug tightened until my knuckles ached. "You could have just left me," I said. She laughed softly, cold and low. "Divorce? Do you know what that would cost me? Do you know how messy that would be? You're worth more to me. Out of the way." The recorder in my pocket caught every word. My chest pounded so hard I thought she might hear it. I forced myself to stay calm. "So the cousin helps you, supplies you." Her lips curved into a thin smile. "Family takes care of family." It took everything in me not to lunge across the table, not to shout, not to lose control. Instead, I pushed the mug away, the ceramic scraping against the counter. "I'm done drinking your tea," I said firmly. Her smile faded into something sharper, colder. She leaned forward, voice barely a whisper. "Then you'd better watch what you eat." The chill that ran down my spine was colder than any winter wind. I stood, grabbing my jacket, heart racing, recorder still running. "I need air," I muttered. She didn't stop me. She just stood there in the kitchen, humming again, like a warning. Out in the night, the city lights blurred as I walked fast, my breath clouding in the cool air. The recorder was still warm in my pocket, filled with her confession. Proof, but proof wasn't the same as safety. Because the woman waiting for me in that apartment wasn't just my wife anymore, she was my enemy, and she wasn't finished. I didn't go back upstairs that night. My feet carried me away from the building, away from Lena, down streets that blurred under the neon glow of storefronts. My hands shook in my jacket pockets, one clutching the recorder like a lifeline. Eventually, I found myself at a cheap motel off the interstate, the kind with buzzing lights, peeling paint, and a clerk who didn't ask questions as long as you had cash. I paid for 3 nights up front. The room smelled of cigarette smoke and cleaning spray, but it was safety. Thin, temporary safety. I sat on the edge of the sagging bed, playing back her words again, letting them burn into me. You're worth more to me. Out of the way. Every time I heard her voice, it cut deeper, but it also fueled me. I had her confession. I had proof. Now I needed a plan. The next morning I met Carter at the diner. He listened as I replayed the recording, his face hardening with every word. When it ended, he blew out a low whistle. "That's it," he said. "Take this to the cops. She's done." "It's not that simple," I muttered, stirring the black coffee I couldn't taste. "She's careful, smart, and if she finds out I've gone to the police before they move on her, she'll disappear. Or worse, she'll make sure I do." Carter leaned in, lowering his voice. "Then you need to trap her. Make her walk into her own grave." I stared at him, the idea forming slowly. "Set her up." "Exactly." He pulled out a small notepad. "We record another conversation. This time you push harder. Get her to admit the cousin's role. The payments, the intent, tie it all together nice and neat. Then there's no way out for her." I rubbed my temples, the weight pressing down. "And if she catches me recording? Then you run." He said it plain, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. That night I went back to the apartment. My key turned smoothly, the familiar click echoing in the silence. Lena was sitting on the couch, wine glass in hand, like she'd been waiting. "You didn't come home last night," she said softly, too softly. "Work," I lied. Her smile was faint, almost sad. "You've been doing that a lot lately." "I'm here now," I said, forcing calm. Her eyes scanned me, searching, but she didn't push. She just stood, set down her glass, and moved toward the kitchen. The kettle clicked on. The smell of mint drifted through the air again, thick and suffocating. She placed the mug in front of me like always, but this time I slid it aside deliberately. "I told you I'm done drinking it." Her smile didn't break, but her eyes did. Sharp, flashing. "Then what are you still doing here, Marcus?" I leaned back, my hand in my pocket, thumb pressing against the recorder. "Trying to figure that out." She tilted her head, watching me closely, then leaned down, voice low enough to scrape my nerves raw. "Be careful what you figure out. You might not like the answer." The recorder caught every word. Later, when she went to bed, I stayed up, staring at the mug still sitting untouched on the counter. The tea had cooled, the surface dark and still, reflecting the kitchen light like a mirror. In that reflection, I saw myself, not as a victim, not anymore, but as a man planning his escape, and maybe his revenge. I didn't sleep. My body lay in the bed beside hers, but my mind stayed awake, alert, every sound magnified. The hum of the fridge, the faint buzz of the streetlights through the blinds, the steady rhythm of her breathing. I held the recorder under my pillow like a weapon, thumb tracing its hard edges, ready in case she tried something while I drifted off. By dawn, I was gone. I slipped out of the apartment before she woke, the city still quiet, streets damp with morning dew. I drove to the motel, grabbed the backup copies of the recordings I'd hidden there, and dialed Carter. He answered on the first ring. "Talk." "I've got more," I said. My voice sounded foreign, hoarse from a night without rest. "Another recording. She threatened me." "Good," Carter said. "Not good that she threatened you, but good that it's on tape. We're building the case." "Case," I muttered, gripping the steering wheel. "Feels more like a war." "That's because it is," he said simply. We met again, this time not at the diner but in his office. A cramped, windowless space above a pawn shop. Files stacked high on metal shelves, the air thick with dust and old coffee. Carter plugged the recorder into his computer, played back Lena's voice. Her words filled the room like poison gas. "Be careful what you figure out. You might not like the answer." He shook his head. "She's bold. Too bold. That kind of arrogance always cracks eventually." "She's not cracking," I said bitterly. "She's humming, smiling, making dinner like nothing's wrong." "That's part of it," Carter said, leaning back. "Poisoners. They like patience. It's about control. Not just ending you, but owning the process. Every sip, every swallow, she feels powerful. That's her high." I clenched my fists until my knuckles popped. "I can't stay in that apartment. Every second with her feels like standing on a landmine." "You won't have to for long," Carter assured me. "We'll draw her out." "But you need one more step. A third-party witness. Someone to hear her slip again." I thought of the cousin, the pharmacist, scared, sweating behind his counter. If I could get him talking, if I could pull the truth from him, it wouldn't just be me versus her. It would be family turning on family. "I'll handle the cousin," I said. Carter frowned. "Be careful. Cornered men get desperate." "Noted." I left his office with the recordings backed up on a second drive, the weight of them heavy in my pocket. Proof of betrayal. Proof of murder in progress. That evening, I returned to the apartment. Lena was in the kitchen again, like she hadn't moved all day, wineglass in hand, the kettle already whistling. "You disappeared early," she said, her voice warm but edged. "Deadlines," I replied smoothly. She studied me, sipping her wine. "You're thinner. Stress doesn't suit you, Marcus." I forced a smile. "Neither does poison." For half a heartbeat her hand froze on the stem of the glass. Then she laughed lightly, shaking her head. "You always did have a dark sense of humor." I joined her at the table, recorder hidden in my pocket, and forced myself to eat the meal she laid out. Every bite felt like glass, my eyes flicking between her hands and her smile. After dinner, she leaned closer, her perfume heavy with jasmine. "You don't have to fight me," she whispered. "You could just let go." Her words slithered through me, cold and sharp. That night, I didn't stay. I kissed her cheek, told her I had an early meeting, and walked out with my jacket zipped tight, the recorder full of her venom. On the drive back to the motel, my phone buzzed. A text from Carter. "We need to move soon. She knows you're onto her." And I realized he was right. The dance was ending. Soon, one of us would fall. The next morning, I parked across the street from the pharmacy. Engine off, hands gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles whitened. My chest felt tight, like someone had strapped a belt around my ribs. This wasn't just about catching Lena anymore. It was about dragging the truth out of the man helping her. Her cousin, the pharmacist. I waited until the morning rush cleared out. Just a couple of mothers with strollers, an old man buying aspirin, before I pushed open the door. The bell above it jingled. The place smelled like rubbing alcohol and cardboard boxes, the same stale scent as every small pharmacy in the city. He was behind the counter, white coat buttoned, face pale when he recognized me. His shoulders stiffened. "You shouldn't be here," he muttered. "Relax," I said, keeping my voice low. "I'm not here to make a scene. I just want answers." He glanced toward the security camera in the corner. "Not here." "Then where?" I pressed. "Back." "Oh." His voice was tight, his hand trembling slightly as he pushed open a door marked "Employees Only." The room behind was small, lined with shelves of pill bottles and boxes. The air smelled faintly of antiseptic. He closed the door quickly, his back against it. "You don't understand," he whispered. "Then make me understand," I snapped. "She's been poisoning me for weeks, with your help." "Why?" He rubbed his face, sweat breaking along his hairline. "She told me it was harmless, that it was just something to make you calmer. Said you were under stress. Said she needed help keeping you level." "Level?" My laugh was sharp, bitter. "Atropine isn't chamomile. It doesn't calm anyone. It kills." His eyes dropped. "I didn't know at first. She's family. She said she'd pay me, that it was temporary. By the time I realized what she was doing, I was trapped. Trapped how? She threatened me, he admitted, his voice breaking. Said if I stopped, she'd ruin me. My license, my job, my life. Said she'd make sure nobody would believe I wasn't involved. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. And she's not bluffing. You've seen what she's capable of. You've been part of it. He swallowed hard, eyes darting to the shelves like he was looking for an exit. I never wanted this, Marcus. I swear. But if she finds out I told you, she won't, I cut in. Unless you give me something concrete, something I can use to end this. He hesitated, breathing fast, then finally reached into his pocket. He pulled out his phone, shaking hands scrolling through messages. He turned the screen toward me. Texts. From Lena. Same dose. Don't change it. He's slower lately. Good. Tomorrow, bring more. My stomach twisted. Cold washed over me. Proof. I grabbed his wrist gently but firmly. Send these to me. Now. He did, thumb trembling against the screen until the files appeared in my inbox. I released him, stepping back. You did the right thing, I said. He shook his head, eyes wet. No, the right thing would have been never saying yes in the first place. I left him in that back room, his shoulders slumped like a man waiting for judgment. Outside, the sun was too bright, the street too loud. My phone buzzed with the incoming files, evidence that tied Lena's words to his hands, tying them both together in the noose they'd woven for me. I should have felt relief, but all I felt was rage. Rage at her smile, her humming, her whispered threats. By the time I drove back to the motel, my decision was made. I wasn't going to the police yet, not until I looked her in the eye, one last time, with the truth in my hand. Because this wasn't about escaping anymore. It was about ending her game. I didn't tell Carter what I had on Lena's cousin. Not yet. The texts were too explosive, too raw. I wanted her to hear me speak them out loud. I wanted to watch her face when she realized the walls were closing in. That evening, I returned to the apartment. The same routine played out, Lena in the kitchen, humming, wine glass in hand, kettle on the stove. The smell of mint drifted toward me before I even closed the door. You're just in time, she said brightly, like nothing in the world was wrong. Yeah, I answered, setting my jacket over the chair. The recorder was tucked in the pocket again, already rolling. We sat at the table. Roast beef tonight, carrots glistening with butter. The plates looked perfect, too perfect, like a magazine spread. But all I could see was the mug waiting at my side. Steam curling, sweetness masking poison. I cut into the beef, chewed slowly, and then said, I saw your cousin today. The knife froze in her hand. Only for half a second, but I saw it. You what? She asked, voice steady but eyes sharp. Stopped by the pharmacy, I said, stabbing a carrot with my fork. We had a nice little chat. Her lips tightened. Why would you do that? Curiosity. I leaned back, letting the chair creak. Funny thing, he seemed nervous, sweating, like he was hiding something. She set down her knife, folded her hands neatly. Marcus, he's a shy man. You probably intimidated him. Maybe. I let the silence drag before leaning forward. Or maybe he's scared because you dragged him into this, because you made him supply you with poison. Her eyes didn't blink. Her breathing didn't change, but her smile disappeared like someone had switched off a light. That's a dangerous accusation, she whispered. Not an accusation, I said, my voice low. I've got his messages, same dose. Don't change it. He's slower lately. Good. You wrote those, Lena. Her face stayed still, but the air between us snapped tight, electric. For the first time, the humming mask she wore slipped. What I saw in her eyes was pure calculation. You broke into his phone? She asked finally. He gave them to me, I shot back. She laughed then, soft and cruel. Oh, Marcus, you really think anyone's going to believe that? You think a jury will take your word against mine? The venom in her voice made my skin prickle. I pressed my hand against my pocket, making sure the recorder was still there, still capturing every word. They don't need to believe me, I said. They'll believe your cousin. They'll believe the lab. They'll believe you because I've got your voice on tape, more than once. Her chair scraped softly as she leaned closer, her perfume wrapping around me like smoke. You think you're clever, but you're not. You're still here, still eating my food, still sleeping beside me. That recorder in your pocket won't protect you when I decide it's time. The chill that spread through me was bone deep, but I forced my voice steady. Then maybe I won't be here much longer. We locked eyes across the table, two opponents seated at the same war council. The beef grew cold on our plates, the steam from the tea fading into nothing. Finally she leaned back, her smile returning like a mask sliding back into place. Eat up, baby. You'll need your strength. I didn't touch another bite. Later, when she went to bed, I slipped out onto the balcony, recorder still warm in my hand. The city stretched out beneath me, lights flickering, cars humming below. I played back the tape, her voice clear as crystal. That recorder in your pocket won't protect you when I decide it's time. Proof stacked on proof. But proof wasn't enough anymore. Because she wasn't just threatening me. She was daring me. And I was done being the one who flinched. The following morning, I sat in the motel parking lot with the sun climbing over the city, my car radio humming static because I couldn't bring myself to turn it off. I held the recorder in one hand, the cousin's texts in the other, and I knew I had enough to bury Lena. But something inside me refused to run to the cops just yet. It wasn't pride. It wasn't even fear. It was unfinished business. I wanted to see her crack. When I called Carter, he heard it in my voice. "You're stalling," he said flatly. "I'm building," I shot back. "She still thinks she has control. If I pull the trigger now, she'll wriggle out, spin it. But if I push her just a little further—" "You're playing with your life, Marcus," he snapped. "Poisoners escalate when they know they're caught. You can't sit at her table forever." I pinched the bridge of my nose, the steering wheel pressing against my knee. "Give me one more day. Tonight I'm ending it my way." Carter swore under his breath but didn't push. "Then for God's sake, keep your guard up. And don't eat a damn thing she hands you." When I walked back into the apartment that evening, Lena was waiting in the living room. Not in the kitchen, not by the kettle. Just sitting there, legs crossed, wine glass balanced delicately in her hand. "You've been gone a lot lately," she said, eyes flicking toward my jacket. "Work." She tilted her head. "Always work." I didn't move farther inside. I just stood there, staring at her. "I know what you've been doing." Her smile curved, small and sharp. "Do you? Or do you just think you know?" I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, and scrolled until her cousin's texts filled the screen. I tossed it onto the coffee table. The messages glowed under the lamp. "Same dose. Don't change it. He's slower lately." "Good." Her eyes didn't leave the phone. For a heartbeat, her mask slipped, jaw tightening, nostrils flaring. Then she set the wine glass down with a soft clink and leaned back. "So he cracked," she said softly. I crossed my arms. "He was scared. You made him scared." She laughed quietly, shaking her head. "Fear is a tool, Marcus. The same way trust is. You think you're the only one who knows how to use it?" My pulse hammered. "Why me, Lena? Why the slow poison? You could have walked away." Her eyes glinted. "Because walking away leaves you standing, breathing, living, and I wanted you gone." The words cut through me, sharp and clean. I clenched my fists, my nails biting into my palms. "You're not walking away from this," I said. Her smile returned, wider now, almost mocking. "Neither are you." The silence that followed felt endless. The city buzzed faintly outside, but inside the room, it was just her and me, two predators circling the same cage. Finally she rose, smoothing her dress, and walked toward the kitchen. "Dinner will be ready in 20 minutes, she said over her shoulder. "You'll eat, or you won't. Doesn't matter anymore." I stayed rooted in place, my body trembling with fury. She was daring me again, daring me to blink first. But this time, I wasn't just recording her words. This time, I was preparing the endgame. I knew dinner would be her final move. The air in the apartment felt charged, like static before a storm. Every shadow longer, every sound sharper. I'd reached my limit of playing defense. Tonight, it was going to end. I went into the bedroom first, pulled out the small safe I kept under the bed, and slipped the thumb drive inside. The drive held every recording, every photo, every text. If she tried anything tonight and I didn't make it out, Carter knew where to look. My insurance. By the time I stepped into the kitchen, Lena had set the table. Candlelight flickered across polished silverware, wine glasses half full of deep red, plates steaming with pasta that smelled of garlic and herbs. It looked like a celebration, not a war. She looked up at me, her smile soft, almost tender. Sit. I lowered myself into the chair, the recorder already running in my pocket. My chest felt tight, but my face stayed calm. You know, she said, twirling pasta around her fork, we could still fix this. Forget the recordings, forget the cousin, we start over. Start over? My laugh was dry. You've been poisoning me, Lena. You wanted me gone. Her eyes sparkled in the candlelight, a glimmer of something cruel. I wanted control. You lost your edge, Marcus. You stopped being the man I married. So I made you weaker, softer, easier. I clenched my fork until the metal bent. That's not love. Love is power, she whispered. And power means survival. Her words slithered into the room, wrapping around me. But instead of breaking me, they hardened me. You're wrong, I said, voice low. Love means I walk out of here alive, and you don't. For the first time, her smile faltered. I reached into my jacket and placed my phone on the table. I hit play. Her voice filled the room. You're worth more to me. Out of the way. That recorder in your pocket won't protect you when I decide it's time. The sound echoed off the walls, louder than the traffic outside, louder than the pounding in my chest. Lena's face froze as her own words poured out of the speaker. Police will have this in the morning, I said. Your cousin's texts too. It's over. For a long moment she didn't move. Then slowly, deliberately, she pushed her chair back and stood. Her hands rested on the table, fingers spread wide, nails gleaming. You think you've won? She said softly. But proof doesn't always mean victory. I still know you. I still live here. You can't hide from me. I rose too, my chair scraping hard against the floor. Watch me. Her eyes burned into mine, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I saw something new flicker there. Fear. Just a flash, but enough. I grabbed my jacket, thumbed the recorder off, and stepped toward the door. She didn't follow. She didn't shout. She just stood there in the candlelight, her face caught between rage and disbelief. In the hallway, the cool air hit me like a wave. My legs felt weak, but my resolve was iron. This wasn't just about escaping anymore. It was about ending her reach, making sure she never tried again. I called Carter as I walked to the elevator. It's done, I told him. I've got everything. Tomorrow we take it to the cops. He was silent for a beat, then said, Good. But tonight, don't go back in there. Not even for a toothbrush. She's cornered, Marcus. That's when they're most dangerous. I nodded, gripping the phone tight. I'm not stepping foot in that place again. The elevator doors opened. The city waited below, buzzing, alive. And for the first time in weeks, I felt alive too. Tomorrow would bring justice. Tonight, I was free. Morning smelled like rain on hot concrete, that wet mineral scent drifting up from the street as I sat on a hard plastic chair in a downtown precinct. The fluorescent lights hummed, a different song than the ones that haunted my nights. The recorder felt small in my palm, warm from my grip. A detective with a salt and pepper beard watched me the way construction foremen watch a crane. Hands off, eyes everywhere. Start from the beginning, he said. I did. I gave him the lab report, the photos, the security footage, the cousin's texts, and, most important, the recordings. My voice stayed steady even when my throat tightened. When I tapped play, Lena's words spilled into that gray room with its bulletin board maps and crooked blinds. You're worth more to me. Out of the way. The detective didn't blink. He wrote slowly. He asked clean questions. He didn't rush the silence. By noon, they had a warrant. By evening, they had her. I didn't see the arrest. Carter did. He called me from a block away, traffic hissing around him. They walked her out calm, he said. No show, no shouting. She kept her chin high. I could see it without seeing it. The camel coat neat on her shoulders. Sunglasses on even if the sun was hiding. The set of her mouth like steel. I didn't feel triumph. Not yet. I felt empty and heavy at the same time, like a bell that had rung too hard. 2 days later, the cousin sat across from me in the ADA's office, hands wrapped around a foam cup he didn't drink from. He looked smaller without the white coat, shoulders caved in. He didn't try to meet my eyes. "I'll testify," he said hoarsely. "I'll tell them everything." His lawyer nodded, voice tight. "Full cooperation for consideration." The ADA, a woman with neat braids and eyes that measured twice before she cut once, looked at me. "You good with this?" I took a breath, tasted stale coffee and paper dust. "I want it stopped," I said. "All of it." It moved fast after that in the way slow systems sometimes do once they finally start. Restraining order granted. Her bail denied. Flight risk, and a list of digital footprints that sounded like a drum roll. The pharmacy board suspended his license pending the case. Carter refused my money and bought me breakfast instead. The kind of greasy spoon plate that leaves your fingers shiny and your stomach awake. I ate every bite and didn't feel sick. I didn't feel fogged. I felt present. I left the apartment for good. I found a place in a smaller building in a greener neighborhood. Third-floor walk-up with creaky steps and a balcony barely big enough for a chair and a stubborn fern. The first night there, I slept with the windows open and the box fan humming, cool air sliding over my skin. No humming from the kitchen. No kettle screaming like a warning. Just the sound of a distant train and my own breathing, slow and real. Work got easier once my head cleared. Numbers lined up again. Words made sense. My boss looked at me like I'd come back from a long trip. At the gym, the bar felt lighter in my hands, chalk dust biting my palms, sweat burning in my eyes. My body remembered itself. My mind followed. On a Saturday, I walked 2 miles to a farmer's market and bought tea from an older woman with silver rings and quick hands. She asked what I liked. I told her I didn't know anymore. She smiled and handed me a blend that smelled like lemon peel and wintergreen. "Brew it light," she said. "Let it teach you." Back home, I boiled water in a dented kettle that whistled like a happy bird. The mug warmed my fingers. Steam touched my face. I took a sip and waited. No bitterness hiding under honey. No chemical ghost. Just clean heat. Citrus bright on my tongue. The mint like a cool hand on my neck. My shoulders dropped without me telling them to. Carter stopped by that afternoon. He leaned on the balcony rail, looking out at the little strip of park across the street. Kids shrieking at a splash pad. A dog shaking water in a silver spray. "You look different," he said. "Alive," I said. He nodded, eyes kind. "Trial'll be rough, but you've got a wall of proof. You did it right." I thought of Lena's eyes across candlelight, the shine on the surface of a mug, the way control can dress up as care. Pain flickered, but it didn't own me. "I'm done living in rooms where I have to hold my breath," I said. He clapped my shoulder. "Good." When he left, evening slid in soft and blue. I brewed another cup and took it to the balcony. The city breathed under me. Sirens far off. Someone's music 3 buildings over. The brass of laughter curling around the block. I felt the chair's wood under my thighs, the mug's weight in my hand, the clean air filling my chest. I thought about the man who walked into a security office and saw his life from the outside, grainy and gray. I thought about the man who walked out. A message buzzed on my phone, a check-in from the ADA about a hearing date. I answered, then set it face down. I took another slow sip. The tea was honest. I could taste every leaf. I could taste my future in it. Simple, steady, mine. I closed my eyes and let the warmth spread through me. Not a weapon. Not a trap. Just a cup in a quiet room, a heartbeat I trusted. A life I chose. "Yeah," I whispered to nobody. To the night. To me. "I'm here."